Hi, everyone. This is Nora Armani, founding artistic director of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York. And this is our, I've lost count, but it's all on the schedule. You can go and count for yourselves to see how many of these Meet the Filmmaker sessions we have done. But I know what it is about. It is about my immigration and migration. Oh, my timer. Haha, everything is on timer here. Migration and immigration. So we have some wonderful filmmakers here, and we have a moderator with us who will conduct the interviews. Let me just tell you that we are not over yet. The festival is past its midpoint. We are towards the end of the week of the festival. We still have 2 more days to go, namely the rest of today, all of Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday is a very important day because we have the award ceremonies. The link is on the festival website. Whoever wants to join can do so. It's open to the public. You are welcome to join in as an attendee and listen and find out who the winners are going to be. When you go to the schedule page on the Socially Relevant Film Festival, ratedsrfilms.org website that is streaming in front of you, and you click on that link that says Closing Award Ceremonies, that will bring you into the Zoom webinar. It says celebration, and that's not because we don't know how to spell celebration. It's because it's on Zoom. And anything that is on Zoom has to be spelled with a Z. So, celebration. Please be with us. But I've got some good news to give you before we open the floor and let the filmmakers tell us about their films. It's that we are extending the streaming by 2 more days. Because of people have been asking us, we have so many films. We have 63 films from 33 countries, and people are asking us, 1 week is not enough. I cannot get to see all the films that I want to see in 1 week. So we have extended, and that's going to be all the way until midnight on Tuesday, the 23rd of March. It will give you an opportunity to catch up on what you haven't seen until now, and it will also give you an opportunity to see the winning films in case you hadn't seen them until then. So this said, I also want to mention that we have a bunch of panels, workshops that were free of charge offered to the filmmakers, and whoever is interested, of course, can attend. They are all on our YouTube channel, as will be this broadcast as you are seeing it. On the YouTube channel, you can see the past broadcasts, and you can also catch some of the ones that you have missed. So tomorrow at 11, from 11 to 1 o'clock, we are hosted co-sponsored at the NGO CSW 65th Forum of the United Nations at the Commission on the Status of Women, NGO CSW. At 11 o'clock, we are going to screen 2 films that talk about the status of women, and we are going to have a panel discussion with the filmmakers. The link to that and how to join in is also on the website, not in the schedule. This one is in the workshops and panels, industry workshops and panels page of the website. You can go in and watch the films with us and participate in the conversation. So without further ado, let me open the floor and introduce you our moderator. First of all, we have here Lucie Tripon, who is a festival team member. She has been on the festival team for a while now, since even before it started. And She is a filmmaker herself. She's an actress. She loves theater and she works in theater and film. She is actually also starring in one of the films that we screened, or we are screening this year. It's called I Am Not Blonde. So if you want to see Lucie in action, you can also catch that film. So Lucie, I give you the mic to introduce your filmmakers, and thank you very much. I can always not thank the filmmakers enough for trusting us with their films, because without filmmakers, we don't have a film festival, and especially filmmakers like yourselves who decide to tell socially relevant stories. So I'm going to make myself scarce and let you guys move on with the floor.
Thank you, Nora, for this very wonderful introduction. It's my pleasure to conduct that Q&A with you guys. I really enjoy watching your movies, and also the theme of immigration and migration is particularly dear to me. So I was particularly interested. I know that we're lucky to have boys and girls on this discussion who are based in several continents. We have people in America, North and South, and also in the United Arab Emirates and in London. I don't know who wants to start. I would just like to quickly ask you to introduce yourself, and also tell us a little bit about your film, the subject, and how what was the idea at the start of that film. I don't know who wants to start. Should I? Yeah, Andres.
I can start. So my name is Andres Bronnimann. I'm a filmmaker from Costa Rica. My mom is actually from Mexico and my dad is from Switzerland. So there's a little bit of why I was a little bit interested in migration in the first place. So my movie in the Socially Relevant Film Festival is called The Universality of It All. It's basically a documentary essay that talks about different migration cases around the world. One of the cases is Nicaraguan migration into Costa Rica. Another one is from the Middle East to Europe, from Mexico and Central America to the United States. And basically, I compare them to draw some correlations and comparisons between them to essentially make viewers think more critically about migration. And I can talk a lot more about the film, but that's essentially what the subject matter is: immigration and its connection to different issues around the world.
Thank you, Andres. I think we have Sydney, Becky, or Tal, I don't know.
I can go.
Yes.
I'm Sydney. I was Sydney Bowie at the time I made the film, so my name has since been changed. But my film is Boza, which is a character-driven documentary that follows the lives of 3 migrants on their that leave home in their teens and embark on a years-long journey to Spain. And I combined both observational footage of their present-day life in Spain with animated reenactments of their migration journey. And really the goal of this film was to counter stereotypes about migrants and refugees as powerless victims of circumstances by focusing on 3 stories of success. So it's kind of how the idea originated and just a little bit about my film. And I just want to say thanks so much for including Boza in the program. This is the first virtual festival I participated in, so it's great to finally have the film available and be able to reach so many people.
Thank you. Becky?
Sure. My name's Becky Beamer, and my film is PSYCAP. And I teamed up with a professor who works with me at American University of Sharjah here. She's in the business school, I'm in the School of Art, and we teamed up to look at refugee community Zaatari camp in northern Jordan with the support of German Jordanian University. And we were doing a survey as well as a documentary that looked at the psychological capital of refugees, in which case we are focusing on the innovation and opportunities to look at refugees as a resource, an untapped resource, rather than something that's negative. And so we follow around a bunch of entrepreneurs and see how they were able to survive under the extreme conditions of leaving Syria as refugees. So that's my film that's in the program. And I'm really thankful to everyone at the Socially Relevant Film Festival for hosting us. It's really important to get our program out there and have as many people look at it as possible. So thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tal Ameron. I'm based in London. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I also teach documentary filmmaking at University in Norwich, in northeast of England. Dafa Metti is a film about undocumented Senegalese migrants in Paris who try to survive by selling souvenirs of the Eiffel Tower. The translation of the word Dafa Metti is difficult. The film follows the migrants as they go about selling the souvenirs. It uses, well, I'm probably going to talk about it later in terms of the form that I chose to tell the story. I wasn't able to reveal their identities. The film tells the story of the migrants through, so we see footage of the souvenirs that they sell, the area that they sell the souvenirs around Trocadero, and the Eiffel Tower. And there's a sequence there that was shot in an accommodation in one of the rooms that the migrants live together.
Thank you so much. Thanks all of you for this presentation. I think one of the common feature about all your films is these are documentaries that are really character driven. So I'd like to ask all of you to tell me a little bit about those characters, those persons. How did you meet them? Was it difficult to convince them to tell you the story, to trust you in some cases? I know that in the film, in Tal films, he follows them to their room, to where they live, and it sounds like you have to trust really that person. And so I would like to know more about the story behind the story. How did you meet those characters? How did you manage to get their stories to you? Thanks.
How should we do it? How should we?
Oh, it's up to you guys, and we can, we can do it organically. We can just, but again, start, Tal. Go for it.
Okay. So the access. So initially, when I visited Paris with my previous film, this is how the idea came to make the film. I visited a festival in Paris with my previous short doc, also following. Well, they weren't undocumented. They were migrants, Romanian migrants in London, making sand sculptures on the pavements of London. So when I visited the Eiffel Tower and I saw, I came across that phenomenon of hundreds, if not more, guys selling identical souvenirs. That's when the idea came to me, and I basically arrived in Paris without access, and I started speaking to people. Some people were sort of obviously very sort of not sort of very forthcoming and cooperative, understandably, and some were really sort of open and forthcoming. And what sort of provided me with the access initially was I was there with some of the meetings with the guys was with the French Senegalese girl who lives in Paris, and she speaks Wolof. And initially, after speaking to some of the guys and building initial access, again, it took time. It was over a course of a year that I made the film from start to finish.
Okay.
Some of the trips, some of the meetings with the guys were done with my French Senegalese friend, and in many ways that sort of validated me in the rise of some of the migrants who were perhaps a bit apprehensive, because building trust, it's what it's all about. So yes, so I met them over the course of months, and eventually, in the sequence that you described, Lucie, so the migrant was allowing me to come into the accommodation where they live, and he pretty much kind of smuggled me in because his friends weren't too happy to see that person coming. I mean, I had my camera in my bag, a tripod in a bag, but they didn't know that I was there to film inside. And he kind of locked me in, and he said, "You don't open the door. If people knock on the door, you don't open, you just stay there." He left me there for a few hours, and then he came back. He trusted me. We had that relationship and friendship between us two, but no one else knew about it. He was a bit apprehensive of his friends, getting a bit angry with him, I guess, or worried bringing that guy into his flat. So, and I just literally, I spoke to two of the guys today on WhatsApp. So we're still in touch. I helped them. And, when you make a film, as probably all my colleagues here know, these are friendships and relationships that you build with people. These are real people. They're not characters in a film. They're not actors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Maybe Sydney?
Yeah, sure, I can go. So I actually lived in Spain for a year, and I kind of knew to begin production and pre-production on the film, and I knew from the outset that I didn't want to start shooting for some time. So I spent actually probably the first 8 months just meeting people. I volunteered at an immigration reception center in Sevilla, and I just pretty quickly became embedded in the local community there. And I wasn't really trying to seek out people to be in the film and convince them to be in the film. I wanted the kind of participants to choose to be in the film. So it was kind of a self-selecting group of people that ended up in the final version. And like I said, I didn't begin shooting until the very end. And I think that was really essential to building the trust and the friendships that I have with the three main characters in the film. But I'll also add just the language barrier was a really interesting one for me, but also something that I felt we could bond over because I was learning Spanish as a second language, and it was the only way we could really communicate apart from Jamal, who spoke English. But that was another interesting experience for me, and just navigating that as well.
Thank you, Sydney. What about you, Becky? Your characters are actually they're refugees from the Syrian war. They're not migrants, huh? They flew the war.
Yeah, they're all living in the same area called Zaatari Camp in northern Jordan, and I didn't start shooting. I'm pretty much echoing a lot of what other people are doing as far as being embedded in the community for a while before actually starting shooting. I started shooting on my second trip in, and took a total of 3 trips. We had a small group of 4 crew members, which comprised of me, who was everything technical, and the producer. And then I had my other researcher with me, but she was in charge of the survey, and she's not related to camera. And then I had a government minder and a fixer. And so it was about gaining trust, not only with the people we were interviewing, but also the fixer who we had to work with. I call him a fixer, worked as a translator, but also organizer within the community, who was from the community. And then the government organizer or minder, who made sure that we were following rules and regulations set up within the camp by the Jordanian government. And so it's the first time that they allowed this kind of ongoing project to happen. And yeah. Oh, as far as sorry, one other thing about meeting people. I did not have trouble at all meeting people. I'm very natural and honest and genuine, that I'm interested in their life and who they are. And the only barrier we had is some people wanted to participate in the survey but did not want to participate on screen because they had family and or ties that could be dangerous still with Syria. So we had to be careful to make sure that we weren't divulging any information that would potentially harm anyone.
Thank you. You, Andres, it's particular because you're one of the character and your friend too. But tell us about your friendship.
Yeah. So the protagonist of the film is actually my best friend, who was my roommate in college. He's from Yemen, and when I met him, we both had we were both studying, but because of things that happened in life, he ended up becoming a refugee in Canada from the US. But the funny thing is that for me, it didn't start with me choosing the story. Oh, I'm gonna tell the story of my best friend. It was a crazy process making this film, as I'm sure like making any film is. But I started more like researching, reading a lot of like data and reports from migration, because what I wanted was to answer the question: is migration something good or something bad, or it just is, right? And really connected to different topics. And I ended up even changing the title at the end to The Universality of It All, because for me, what that meant is that if you start studying migration, you realize that the movement of people happens because of so many factors. To some extent, migration is the result of all the other issues. And so then is when I took the decision, if in fact, everything is connected, then I can find that universality of it all within my own life and the people around me and the closest people to me. Because I'm not able to tell well the story of the people around me, then who am I to tell the story of someone that I don't know? So that's when I took the decision, I need to make it personal, and I need to make it about who I know best, and who best that like the person that I lived there for 4 years. And the film goes, the chronology goes from when the civil war in Yemen started until today, and I was there next to him throughout the whole process. And so the footage, a lot of the footage is footage that at the beginning we started recording without knowing where it was gonna go, and at the end, like I gathered it all together in post-production, and yeah. So
yes, that's funny, because that's one of the question I had for you. It was about the title, and you kind of responded. And yeah, I was thinking that's the universal message in a way, that we're all migrants. And I was also another thing that that's struck me about a lot of your film is the form of it. In your case, Andres, I found it like you were taking me on a journey more. It's not a typical documentary that you film. In the case of Sydney, there's a lot of cartoons. So I would like you guys to tell us a bit more about that, Andres, about this. How did you have? Yeah, you say it came organically, or did you spend a lot of time researching the soundtrack? Also, this is an extensive soundtrack. And in your case, can you tell us about the cartoon, where they come from, and a little bit of the form? And I must say also, Tal also has this very the way he's filming is very reflective, and we see Paris in a very the city of the light in a very beautiful way, while you're also filming really a different reality. And in your case, Becky, it's more straightforward in a way as a documentary. But please tell us about this, about the film. Thank you.
Well, in my case, well, as many independent filmmakers, sometimes you have to make decisions based on your budget, as simple as that. So a lot of the decisions I took were based on budget, first of all. But in terms of like the style, I mean, I decided to narrate it again because in filmmaking, whether you're narrating it or not, it is your point of view. And I wanted to be completely open about, okay, this is my point of view and this is how I can connect things and be as truthful as I can. And in terms of why the film like goes to different places around the world, it was thought of it as a series at first, a series that had 8 episodes, and each episode was about a different migration case. But then I realized that I wanted to do a long format that explains those connections that the different migrations around the world have. And that's why it ended up being this mixture of juxtaposing what happens in this country, in this other country, and trying to find, as I said, like the correlations that each migration has, and all through the lens of my friendship with my best friend, who is now getting his nationality in Canada after he crossed the U.S. border to go to Yemen to apply for asylum. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Sine?
Yeah, I think in film, you're always looking for ways to show rather than tell, and using animation really opened the film up to that. And I wanted it to be like highly subjective, and that it was their account of what happened according to their memory. And we were really able to get creative with that in our use of visuals. So I wanted there to be like little touches of magical realism and kind of like little contradictions in the narrative. Like there's this one moment where Jamal, in the interview, if you saw it, he says the mountain was like this, no, it was like this. He kind of like changes the story a little, so the image changes too. And then like some of the waves, he says it was like a storied building, like a skyscraper. And so we wanted the waves to look probably much larger than they would have been in reality. But that was just like such a fun experience to be able to kind of write these scenes. I've never worked in like a narrative or kind of fictional form, and I wanted to push the form of the film in that way. And I got to work with this really talented animator in Argentina, and I wanted them to kind of look like almost sketch-like they were sketches pulled from their journals or something like that. So that's kind of the quality that they had. And then like the huge swashes of color over it, but not to be hyper realistic, because it isn't. I mean, those events were never captured. You can never capture reality perfectly with something like that. So it's really like embracing the kind of like subjectivity in the visual form is something that the animation allowed for. So.
No, it's definitely work. It's because they're telling you the stories, and some of the situations are dramatic, or sometimes they tell us about few miracles that happened to them when one of one of the person is in the desert and is thirsty, and then there's in front of him there's a well that appear, or they're stuck in the water and there's a fisherman boat suddenly that come. It sounds like, and with the cartoon, it kind of portray it very well, convey it very well, I found.
Thanks. Yeah, I think like those almost divine moments of divine intervention, or like that was something that I think you would not have been able to capture as well without the animation. Yes. It wouldn't have had, and that was what kind of that magical realism I'm talking about, that was a big part of the animation where that came through.
Thank you, Cindy. Tal, I really also was very appreciative of the way you film and contrast, the hardship your protagonist goes through, and with the magic of Paris, and the irony that they're selling those souvenirs, the Paris souvenir. Tell us more about it.
So that's exactly it. That's exactly what captivated me to make a film about it initially. Because when I saw the guys selling these identical souvenirs, and then when I stood there for a while and saw the police chasing them and the guys just grabbing the souvenirs and run for their lives, that sort of paradox, that contrast between what they were selling, which is the icon, the symbol of France, that monument, yet I came to realize that they're all undocumented, and that sort of dissonance and contrast. And also, I'm quite visual because I shoot my films and I edit my films. And when I looked at all these souvenirs, when I came there late at night, one night, and I saw these hundreds of souvenirs, like sea of souvenirs, glowing in the dark for miles and miles. They were just almost like sea of flames, like mini fires. But by then I realized that it was melancholic. There was nothing celebratory or beautiful about it. It was pretty to look at, but for me it was almost like a symbolism for that sort of suffering, because I saw them running away, coming back, running away, that kind of cat and mouse chase. And to your question earlier, Lucie, about the form, the approach in form. So initially, I think before I really, and when you make a film, I mean, for me at least, the research is very minimal. So the research is actually making the film, meeting the people. This is the research for me. So I do, research just to, to understand what I want to explore, but I don't know all the ins and outs. And that's for me the whole, excitement of making a film. And then I realized that initially I thought I'm going to make a verite film. I'm going to make an observational film. And I started filming with one of my subjects, and he was happy for me to film him. And then at some point he said, Tal, actually, no, I'm not happy about that. And I said, absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, I totally respect and appreciate your request. And again, I learned as I was doing it, hang on, I can't actually show their faces. They could be persecuted for that. And that forced me to change sort of approach. And that sort of necessitated how I went about it. So I thought, okay, so how I'm going to tell the story without revealing their identities, which kind of led me to that approach of filming the areas, filming the River Seine when they talk about jumping into the river and dying, drowning. And this is really how I went about it. And the editing process was really sort of cutting, the voiceover interviews with them, which I did audio. I never filmed their faces. It was just done, recorded into a microphone, cut that together with the images to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Thank you, Tal. Becky?
Yes. So I think what would be interesting to talk about for my film is the fact that I include a little piece or insight into the making of the film, and the filmmakers being the researchers as glimpse or cameos or to frame the story. And for me, that's important, particularly in this story, although I do it in many of my films, because it allows the viewer, the audience, to understand what perspective the filmmaker is coming from. So in my case, I am an outsider to this community. And for me, I am a white woman, generally American, middle-aged from middle America. So I can't change that. And in the same way, if I allow the audience to know that's where I'm coming from, then I don't have to hide behind it. Instead, it becomes part of the story, my ideology to how I'm seeing, which is also a unique perspective rather than an inside perspective. But let me just take you to one scene in the film, which I think is really funny, where, or I don't know, it may pass you by, you may not even have seen it, but there's a moment where I'm immersed into the marketplace, and it's similar to like in City of God, we're going through in one seamless motion. And I cut that long seamless shot with a shot where you don't know who it's on, but it's the Dr. Kim Gleason has a GoPro strapped to her chest. She didn't know how to do a camera at all, so I just strapped it to her chest so she'd walk around. But she caught me running after, this bike with these people.
I've seen that. I remember now. I was wondering what it was about.
So that's what was going on, and that to me, is how I build part of how I build this story.
Good. Any anecdote? Actually, that's quite funny. Any anecdote about your film you'd like to share? Anyone? Funny or not funny, or any particular moment, any particular situation? Maybe not. Maybe only Becky. Becky, also, I would like to tell us more about the town. Is that a town? We can call it a town in North Jordan, and about the entrepreneur. What makes them start a venture there, and how they're doing? Tell us about this.
I should have brushed up probably and touched base with people and through WhatsApp right before this. I did not. I did hear from people that they're doing okay with COVID. They locked everything down, so they weren't able to get out. We're talking about, it's the 4th largest city, if you can call it a city, which originally started as a not 100% permanent, but has turned into a permanent settlement. So we're talking about, I want to say around 80,000 people,
okay.
Maybe it's, don't quote me on that. I hate, I'm sorry. I'm recorded. I should have given an actual number. Anyway, it's quite large. I do know it's like the 4th largest city in Jordan. So that's what we're talking about with people. It's massive. That's it, and it's all refugees coming from Syria, and most of them are in a new type of job. I mean, I spoke to a dentist who now supports his wife who owns a dress business, and I talked to someone who curated a museum who now works part-time in a convenience store and part-time as an artist. I spoke to a professor who is still teaching there, but as a volunteer for English as a second language, or like teaching English within the camp. So their stories the stories span from both formal entrepreneurship, which are like mini stores, to the informal, which are out of their houses. And they invited us to their house. I mean, this one woman, her family makes soaps, and we went into her house and she, showed us all of her soaps. It was a really special situation to be invited into. And, I think that's probably what unites all of our stories and what probably drives us to tell more stories, and I hate to speak for anyone else, chime in, because for me, it's about having these moments of humanity with people I would never meet otherwise. And it is about a lasting relationship with these type of stories, hopefully, and not a grab and go sort of situation. What do you guys think?
I'm back.
Welcome back. You have a question?
Yes. No, this is very interesting. What we have been noticing in many of these panels, obviously because they're thematically put together, but also there is a common thread that each one of these groups of filmmakers and the films that they are talking about is showing us that there is a commonality of the character-driven stories, like the people with whom you develop relationships after the filming is over. Because, first of all, unlike narrative films, which both Lucie and I are experienced in, because being actresses, I myself also. You act, you're done, you're finished. Yes, of course, you might have a relationship with the director that continues, but it's not about the character. It's your outside relationship. Whereas in a documentary, first of all, it takes a longer period of time because you're developing, you're learning about them, you're living in their environment. So it's much, much longer period-wise that the developing of this friendship or trust is happening. And then, of course, once it's over, you don't want to say, okay, thank you very much, bye-bye, I got my material, you can go jump off the cliff or throw yourselves in the Seine or do whatever you want because I have made my documentary. That's not how it works. It has a relationship and it stays with you. That's the strongest part of it. All of these documentary films, I mean, as the festival organizer, these documentaries stay with me, let alone what it must be for the people who make these documentaries. So I usually come in at this point because I feel that maybe we should involve some of the questions that audience members are putting. I have a question here by somebody, or Michael Claes, who is a member of our team and also board, and he's asking, at what point do stories about migration and immigration become stories about prejudice and discrimination? Is it ever possible to isolate one from the other? So maybe if you guys want to address this question, or he elaborates, he says, in other words, where in your films is the line between economic nationalism and prejudice against immigrants?
Thank you, Michael.
I can go if you...
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I believe that honestly, it's not about well-off migrants when it comes to discrimination, meaning that migrants that have money, you know, that come to invest, you know, they're not looked down upon. And that's within, like, crossing a border or not crossing a border, even within its own countries, the economic inequality of looking at people that have less economic standing as you, it's something that is happening, whether it's with migrants or people from their own country. So I guess that's for me a little bit of what I learned so far of the line. It's as much as there is xenophobia, and there's always is all of this, but what I see the most is when people talk about waves, or they describe migrants as that, like as a natural disaster, the waves of migrants pouring in. These are not, you know, students, international students that come to schools to study. This is the people that are mostly poor in the world, and I think that's where I think I draw the line, because even the people that, you know, are against those migrants might not be against another type of migrant. And, you know, being migrant is, you know, you can be a refugee, economic migrant. There's many, many, many types. Yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Well, I'm going to jump in here because I keep forgetting that in this particular edition of the festival, I'm not only the organizer and the founding artistic director and curator, but also a filmmaker. And my film is called I, Migrant Woman, very much up the theme. And it was already, we did, I was in the panel that was on Tuesday, no, actually on Monday, about immigration, but we put it immigration and empowering women together because we had too many people in this panel, so I preferred to be over there. So Anyway, I didn't get to say much to start with because there are too many people. And it's very interesting because the point that Andres makes is very, very true. The I Migrant Woman is not about the people who have invested in a Swiss bank and suddenly decide to go, and because of their gold nuggets become, you know, suddenly Swiss citizens. They are migrants for all intents and purposes, but they are given the red carpet treatment, open doors and everything. The same goes with every country, You can Google, every country has a clause where if you invest, you can become a citizen, you get a passport, you are given even some offshore protections, tax deductions, tax protections, etc., etc. So when you're rich, this category of migrant about which we are, immigrant about which we are talking, which is also the refugee in a way, does not apply to you. The film that I am presenting, it's a play called I, Migrant Woman, which was filmed on Zoom. It's a play based on 3 migrant women monologues. The first one doesn't matter where from, because in the first story she's Albanian, but I made her African from Nigeria. The second one is Filipina, but I made her, 2 different actresses played it. One was Colombian and the other one Eastern European. So Eastern Europe is important because you also have migrants from Eastern Europe. It's not, again, it's the race and the migrant and the white migrants, but they're still migrants as long as they don't have the money. So it's becoming an economic divide, not even racial anymore. And then the third one was on the intellectual level, because it's a migrant woman who comes in to write about her country, and her alter ego is the same woman, but 3 generations later. Meaning she has already integrated, she doesn't have an accent, she's writing with the same, in the same country, in the same situation, but on the same themes. So it's still the identity of the migrant that's going with her, or the immigrant. And she's talking about the same issues that concern these women, but we are seeing the 2 differences between the one who's still currently and the one who has been there for a while. So it's very interesting that all of them have that same economic concern. The first one is there trying to find a job, making enough money until the war is over in her country so she can go back, and with her husband, they can start their own shop. The second one, again, she's working as a maid with a rich woman, and she all day she has to say, yes, madame, of course, madame, whatever you say, yes, please, welcome, etc. But in reality, she has a life. She's a person. She has an intellect. She thinks, whereas she's reduced to that yes, madame role. So, I mean, it's fascinating to see how these all tie in together. And we are talking about the migrant persona. So my question to each one of us, and what one of you, I'm not going to answer it myself, not ask myself the question, is how has your life changed after communicating with these migrant people or immigrants about whom your film is? Becky, maybe we should call the names because people don't want to speak.
You know, I think that's a hard question. I haven't really measured, taken the time to think about measuring the change. So I find that a really difficult question. I have to answer. I mean, of course, there's been impact when you meet people and you spend a lot of time and you dedicate your life for X amount of time to a project. So of course I was changed, but I wouldn't, you know, I'm changed by every project that I work on and the people that influence me. So I wouldn't say it's specific to them because they are refugees. You know, they're just,
Yeah.
you know, I have to say I haven't thought of that.
No, you don't have to have thought of that, but it's just like if one thing comes to your mind that you were looking at these situations differently, or and now your outlook has changed. That could also be.
Well, I will say this. I was, you know, we go and we don't know how our survey is going to end up. And we were looking at psychological capital, which is made of 4 things: hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. And we found that this population, this group of people, have an extremely high level of psychological capital, more than an average person. So I mean, from a research standpoint, we were amazed. I mean, you know, aside from the storytelling aspect, there's evidence here of a group of people that have been under tremendous pressure and under huge amounts of pain, and instead of crumbling, have risen in a way that other regular or the general population can't. And that has allowed them to be innovative in their entrepreneurial ventures. So I am wowed and amazed by this, by their ingenuity, by their power to move on day to day. I'm humbled by their living conditions. So yeah, I mean,
Very interesting point, because you see a level of resilience and a level of the desire to live and make the most of the conditions and surmount the difficulties that you don't see in normal, everyday, comfortable lives that we all lead. Tal, Andres, Sydney, you want to reflect on that?
I'll just add that, like, the experience of making my film made me both confront and much more aware of my position of privilege and the responsibility that comes with that privilege, which is something that, I mean, you should grapple with in every film you're making, especially if you're an outsider coming in. So that's something I still think about, honestly, every single day. But also, I just wanted to respond to the question that kind of only Andres answered, as far as like whether we can separate privilege from migration, or sorry, prejudice from migration, whether those two things. And I think they're inextricably linked. I don't think that you can say that, you know, I think it would be like denying the existence of racism to say that there is not prejudice when we talk about the migrant and refugee crisis. If you just look at the policies of Europe and the United States, and then also remember the fact that we have stripped, in the case of the film I was working on, all of the wealth from the African continent. And Africa is not a poor continent, it's an exploited one. And just that, I just kind of wanted to return to that point, because I do think that unfortunately those two things are inextricably tied to one another.
Yeah, it's very, very true. In the stories that the film that I made, also the same thing. It's like the first one is saying, the moment I open my mouth and I'm not able to speak this language properly, people look at me. Up till then, they are kind of nice and friendly looking, and then they go, you know, like that. And then the second one is the same thing, you know, not to be seen, not to be observed, because there is clear discrimination about somebody who's an immigrant. And who didn't answer? Andres? Andres answered, yeah. Yeah, Tal maybe wants to approach that.
So in terms of racism, yes, I mean, I witnessed it myself when I was there, spending time with them, on the ground, on location, seeing tourists. I mean, you spend a lot of time with them, hours and hours, and you see exchanges. You see people walking past them and reacting aggressively. Not everybody. Some tourists are great, but not to mention the stories that they were telling me about the police, and and the violence that they sustain on a daily basis by the hands of the French police, as well as racism that they encounter from from tourists on a daily basis. So, as the Sydney states, embedded inherently, it's part of the story.
Well, I'm not seeing any more comments and questions. So, Lucie, why don't you?
Hello? You mute yourself.
Sorry. I muted myself half sentence. Okay.
Where? So what did you say?
So why don't you go on and continue, because we still have some time. Yeah, maybe we can ask what everybody is expecting from the festival, after the festival, or what are their...
Oh, they can add anything they would like to touch upon. Also, maybe a few words if you'd like. I'm thinking with most of your film were done before the COVID-19, so I was wondering, especially for instance for Tal, they were selling souvenirs, so there are no more tourists. So I was wondering, how they're doing, and
it's horrendous for them. It was bad enough, before COVID. So one of them, literally, we were WhatsApping each other just an hour ago. So he's in Italy now. He was able to get to Italy, and he's working in a field in agriculture as a farmer. Again, illegally, so he works illegally. So if he gets injured or anything, so he was able to. Now he's in Italy, waiting, for COVID to get a little bit better, and I got a text from the other guy. I send them a bit of money sometimes when I can to my characters. I send them using Western Union. So when I can, financially, obviously, I can't support them, but I do send them a bit of money. So every 20, 30 euros for them is a lot of money. So they're desperate, and they help each other. It's a community. There's a Senegalese community there in Paris. They're really helping each other out. So I think this is how they survive. But
okay, thank you, Tal. You guys, you have 1 minute each.
I mean, in terms of like the future of the film, I'm planning to release the film as a fundraiser for an organization and donate the proceedings to an organization that works directly with migrants, so people can not only like watch and get informed about like the different migrations that are happening, but also contribute to the cause as they're watching. And yeah, so that's like the future. And as for like my friend, he's already in Canada. He's living and working there, and we were still in touch. And it's just great news to hear that. And as for the war in Yemen, we're still waiting to see when that will end.
And he was refused refugee status in the US. That's correct.
Yeah, and that's why he crossed the border essentially. Yeah.
Okay, but good luck to your friend and to you, Andres.
Thank you.
For PSYCAP, I'm hoping to screen the film in the refugee camp in the future. We kind of got shut down because of COVID. So my goal is to go back and have a screening for them. I'm looking for hopefully a strategic partner out there. Hello, if you're out there, to work with, to also get it out, to get the word out and possibly change some policy. And I'm easy to find if anyone wants to reach me. I'm at Becky Beamer in almost everything, including .com.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Good luck for you. Sydney?
Sorry, did you just call on someone?
No. Okay.
The Zoom lag is just as far as like what the future of Boza looks like. It's been at festivals for coming up on 2 years now. So as that kind of comes to a close, I'm actually working on translating the film into so that it's available in Spanish, English, and French before I release it online this summer. So it will be available. And yeah, that is kind of where we are at this moment. But again, so grateful to be a part of Socially Relevant Film Festival, and thanks for including the film.
Thanks.
I realized, Lucie, that I misunderstood your question, so apologies. I answered something completely different.
No. I also ask you that question. It's my Noah was asking you about the future, and I was asking you a very precise question. So go ahead, Tal, maybe. No. Okay.
We're nearly at the end, so Andreas, I guess.
Oh, Andres already gave us a. Yeah, we're all good.
Okay. You don't want to tell us what's your...
Oh, yeah, of course. So the film is, it's coming to the end of its festival run, and it just got released on Vimeo Staff Pick. I mean, it had an amazing run. It won many awards, and it was named to the Cinema Eye Honors in New York. So it was really, really incredible. And I'm starting now, pre-production work on my next film, which will also happen in Europe. It will touch on migrations, but from a different angle.
Yeah, that's interesting, because once one theme enchants you or attracts you and so on, in a way, you end up revolving around it most of the time, but looking at it from different angles, involving different experiences that might happen in the meantime. So it's fascinating. Well, we are 2 minutes over, but it's okay. When it's an interesting conversation, sometimes we go over, and that's fine. I just want to thank you all very, very much, because as I said in the beginning, we love these films. We need these films. The world needs these films. And as we have been able to extend the festival a couple of days, so whoever has not had a chance to see each other's films, that's also the beauty of this, to bring people together so that they can know about each other, network with each other. Tomorrow evening, we have our last Happy Cine Hour. So whoever hasn't been to one of the happy hours before, please come and meet your fellow filmmakers. So thank you, Lucie, also for this wonderful moderation. Sure. And maybe if somebody wants to say one last word, or Lucie, you want to say something and wrap up or something like that, please feel free to do so.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to have this discussion with you, and I wish you the best of luck for all your project. Thank you, and I hope we see some of you next year again.
Yes,
thank you.
We do like to see filmmakers we've worked with, we've screened before again. So don't give up on us just because you've already screened once. And the other day at one of the cafes, somebody said, well, this is really cool. We should do this on a regular basis. Of course, we can't do it every day or every week, even for that matter, because people are busy. They have 10,000 things, as I do, of course, as well. So we decided to do it once a month. So look out in your emails. Don't say, oh, there she goes again, out of the thousands of emails we have already received. Look at it carefully, because there may be a date in there for a future networking and get together for everyone who has been part of the Socially Relevant Film Festival before, because this is kind of like a family, and we'd like to keep that spirit. Okay, everyone. So I'm going to go end the broadcast now.
Good evening. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Hasta luego.
Bye-bye.